Hey YouTube, Jim here. Welcome to Top 10 Archive. Recently, there's been a lot of buzz about the Golden State Killer being caught after many thought he'd get away with impunity. GSK was caught thanks to DNA samples taken from his family members that matched the DNA on file. He's not the only one, however. This is the golden age of DNA, false confessions, and a lot more progress leading to plenty of cold cases being solved. Want to see the culprits caught by their own sweat? Well, it's more complicated than that, but let me tell you all about it. But before I lay out the top 10 cold cases solved by DNA evidence, why not become an archivist today by clicking that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. If you end up enjoying this video, let us know by giving it a thumbs up, and in the comments section, tell us your thoughts on any unsolved cases. Number 10. Krystal Beslanowitch, 1995. Krystal Beslanowitch was murdered in Utah in 1995 at age 17. She was killed with a blow to the skull. She was a sex worker, which often gets cases overlooked for being taboo or for the individuals being in high-risk activities. However, the original investigator of the case saw past that and kept the image of her body thrown into the Provo River in his mind for decades. In 2013, they extracted DNA from the rock that was used to kill her. Suddenly, they had a match. Joseph Michael Simpson, a resort bus driver in the area, was the culprit and was promptly arrested and sentenced to life without parole. Number 9. Sherri Miller and Pam Jackson, 1991. In 1971, two young women, Sherri Miller and Pam Jackson, disappeared while driving to a party. Then in 2013, a fisherman noticed a car upside down in the water. Authorities were called, and they removed the car from the creek where it was partially submerged. Inside were the skeletons of the two women. They were just half a mile from the gravel pit where they were headed for the party. While their disappearance is solved after all these years and their families can finally mourn, the question remains, how did they get there in the first place? Number 8. Pamela Shelley, 2001. Pam Shelley died in 2001 on her way to the hospital after being shot in the head at her Texas home. She lived there with her boyfriend not long after ending things with her husband and moved with her kids from Arkansas. She moved into a family friend's house, Ronnie Jo Hendrick. At first, investigators thought she had taken her own life, but 7 years later, an investigator by the name of Carl Bowen, who was on patrol during the incident, spoke out. He said that the cause of death never made sense to him. They gathered enough evidence to indict Ronnie Jo Hendrick and set a trial. Just before the trial, Hendrick decided to plead guilty to murder and was charged to 22 years in prison. Luckily, this officer spoke out and the family was given a name and peace. Number 7. Jay Cook and Tanya van Cuylenborg, 1987. In 1987, a young Canadian couple was murdered in Washington state. Jay Cook was just 20 years old and Tanya, 18, both raped and murdered. For years, no one knew just who had done this terrible atrocity. Finally, in 2019, they not only identified the suspect with DNA and genetic genealogy, they actually took him to trial. William Talbot II was the man, and he was found guilty, much to his apparent surprise. This was all thanks to the fact that the DNA from the crime scene was uploaded to the GED Match, the public genealogy website. 2 second cousins of his were found, and the case was built from there. Police actually staked him out and took his discarded coffee cup for DNA. Number 6. Darlene Krashock, 1987. It's actually common practice to grab discarded DNA from a suspect after he's been identified in the system to verify. It happened in the cold case of the murder of Darlene Krashock, who died in 1987. She was 20 years old at the time and was a soldier. The 32-year-old case may have gone cold, but certainly not forgotten, as the young girl's parents carried her photo in their Bible all the while. Her killer was only caught after the DNA was matched to 3 of his distant relatives who used an at-home DNA kit. The data led police much closer, and one day Michael White stopped at a fast food place, ate, and didn't realize he left evidence that would be used to catch him. Number 5. Denise Sharon Kulb, 1991. Almost 30 years went by after the murder of Denise Sharon Kulb before her killer was arrested and charged. It wouldn't even have happened if it weren't for a yellow sock. What? Give me a second, we'll come back to that. 28-year-old Denise was found dead in 1991 near the Pennsylvania-Delaware border. Her killer, who was actually her boyfriend, had lied to police about the last time he saw her. They had been living together for 2 weeks, and he alleged that he hadn't seen her since they used cracked cocaine and been robbed at knife point. He says he didn't see her after he went to get help. However, she had attended a funeral the day after the incident, so his pin it on the robber scheme didn't work. The clothes she had on, namely the one yellow sock she was wearing, was what brought it home. Her boyfriend had returned all of her clothes back to her family, except the yellow sock that matched. He kept that one. In 2019, Temple University offered to match the 2 socks, and police got to work, resulting in charges. Number 4. Gwen Miller, 1968. A 50-year-old case, Gwen Miller was killed in 1968 in Rapid City. She was a 60-year-old pharmacist who lived alone. She was missed when she failed to attend work one day, and her coworkers thought she might have had problems related to her diabetes. However, the glass on her back door was broken on arrival. She didn't have problems with her diabetes, but rather had been killed in her bed and sexually assaulted. Evidence was taken, but led nowhere until 2016, when they had a DNA profile and were interviewing about 100 people. They reached out to IdentifInders, another DNA service, who came back with the last name Field or Fields, which hadn't come up in investigations at all. So they landed on Eugene Carroll Field, a ticketing agent for Western Airlines, who lived in the house next door to Miller for several months in 1963. His ex-wives both reported being abused by him, and his own brother gave a DNA sample to aid the investigation. 99.23% probability later, there was enough evidence to charge Field. Sadly, justice didn't entirely play out, as he died of a heart attack first. Number 3. Angie Housman, 1993. In 1993, a man raped and murdered a 9-year-old girl in Missouri. He got away with it for 25 years, until justice caught up with him. Back in '93, Angie Housman disappeared while walking home from the school bus. Less than 2 weeks later, her body was found by a hunter. Her underwear had DNA on it and would later reveal the answer to her parents' worst nightmare. Just a pea-sized amount of DNA was enough to catch this poor excuse of a man who, when caught, was already serving time for other horrible crimes. Number 2. Jane Doe, 1983. An unnamed woman in Florida was sexually assaulted in 1983 in Coral Springs. A man held a steak knife to her neck at 6 a.m. after forcing his way into her house. He said to her, terrifyingly, "I have loved you for months." Well, that's some way of showing it. Though she described him to police as a brunette, slender man with strong cologne and a heavy Southern accent, he wasn't caught for over 30 years. Luckily, the DNA connected to the crime was held, and when technological advances were available, the victim reached out to police requesting they revisit the evidence. That's how they found Timothy Morris, who was serving time for armed robbery. Number 1. Jane Morton Antunez and Patricia Dwyer, 1977 and 1978. These two women didn't know each other at all. They were murdered separately during different years. Antunez was found dead in her car in 1977. She was sexually assaulted and her throat had been slit. Patricia was found stabbed to death and sexually assaulted in her home in 1978. DNA evidence was recovered from both murders, but was held until technology advanced enough. Then, decades later, a family member of the killer was arrested. Authorities made the connection, reached out and got items with the suspect's DNA from his girlfriend, which matched perfectly. The culprit was Arthur Rudy Martinez, who was imprisoned for assault, where he died in 2014 of cancer. Looks like, at least in Martinez's case, even when you're not caught immediately for your crimes, a bad egg is a bad egg and ends up in prison anyways. Thanks for watching. All tragic cases to be sure, but also satisfying to know that DNA technology has advanced to the point it has to be able to solve these cold cases. What are your thoughts about these or other cases? Tell us about them in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell to personalize notifications, and give this video a like.